teacher, understanding the different ways that students learn is important. There are 3 different ways in which students or people learn. It's visual, auditory, and or kinesthetic. The acronym for that is VAK, V-A-K. By learning about and understanding these 3 ways of learning, we as teachers will be better equipped to teach our students. So the first one we're going to talk about are the visual learners. Visual learners are best able to absorb information basically as it reads, visually. Whether this be through pictures, videos, etc., representations of most any kind would be helpful for these students or people. There are 2 types of visual learners, linguistic and spatial. Linguistic learners prefer learning through written language such as reading or writing. These students or people remember what they have written, even if they've only read over it once. As for spatial learners, they tend to have more of a difficult time with written language. So instead of using written language, they prefer charts, videos, anything like that. Okay, so we're going to move along to our A, and that's auditory learners. Those who learn by hearing information are called auditory learners. These types of students or people are those who would typically do better in a lecture type setting, so not me. It is more difficult for auditory learners to take in information simply through reading a book. Auditory learners are typically the people you see talking to themselves or reading a book aloud. One thing as a teacher that can be done is telling your class what they are about to learn, teach them, then go back over what they have learned. By doing this, students are better able to absorb this information since it is voiced so many times. Again, that's tell them what they're about to learn, teach them, then go back over what they have learned. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the K, and that stands for kinesthetic learners. Kinesthetic learners do best by touching or moving. For example, it is best for kinesthetic learners to have a hands-on experience for learning. These students or people typically have an easier time in lab settings since there are more hands-on and movement activities. Like visual learners, there are 2 types of kinesthetic learners. Kinesthetic, movement, and tactical, touch. I, for one, am a kinesthetic learner, and the lecture type settings are much more difficult for me. If I'm not taking notes or fiddling with something, doodling, or being instructed to do something that has to do with movement, I lose my concentration and find myself thinking about things that are unimportant. Tactical learners use different colored highlighters, draw diagrams, etc. Some things that would help these students or people is maybe having Play-Doh set out on the desk so they can play with slinkies, or maybe just something for them to fiddle with while they listen so they're kept active. Overall, I believe that it is extremely important for us to understand that not everyone learns the same way. It is key for us as teachers to venture out and try new things to help our students absorb information better and more easily. One last time, the 3 different types of learning are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, VAK.